Hi, everybody. We are back with Adella Cordova, who is the co-founder of Hope Medical Clinic here in Casa Grande. So welcome, Adella. How are you doing today?
Thanks, Bob. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Good.
First of all, before we get into the questions that we have for you today, can you give us a little bit of bio, like who is Adella Cordova? What's your background?
Well, again, my name is Adella. Hello. I founded Hope Medical Clinic along with my partner, Dr. Robert Casa. And as far as who is Adella, I've been in medicine since around 96, specifically in substance abuse since around 2000. I opened this clinic because my brother was murdered, but he was very deep into the heroin addiction. Unfortunately, he was taken from us, which prompted me to open this clinic on behalf of him and my other family members who have passed and other friends that have passed due to drug addiction and just due to bad choices, basically. So it's a real pleasure and passion of mine to be part of this most precious specialty that I love so much, that I dedicate my life to, in helping and serving others so that their families don't have to go through what my family is going through. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Gotcha. Wow, sorry to hear about your brother.
Thank you. I appreciate
And
it. Thank you.
something I reflect on often is it seems to me that most all of us have people in our lives that substance use disorder, substance use, substance misuse, substance dependence has really become a part of their lives. And, it's just like friends and family and all kinds of folks. So, I think that we can all identify with you
Yeah,
when you talk about
unfortunately.
the people in your life. So tell us a little bit about what you do at Hope Medical Clinic, and maybe, like how many people do you serve, and do you work with youth?
So, wow, we have approximately 1,000 patients on the books as we speak. So it's still a small practice. We get people that walk into the clinic on a daily basis. Most just curious as to what we do here, almost dipping their toe in the water, asking for help. I can identify those people that quick. So I'll just start asking questions, probing questions. Can I help? How, not can I help, but how can we help? A lot of times, yesterday, for instance, somebody walked in and they just needed some Narcan. Um, and that's sad because there's a story behind why they wanted Narcan.
Hmm.
Um, so we treat people of we just treat anyone who walks in here. If they need help, we'll treat them. If
So,
they've
so when you say treat, you're talking about folks that are addicted to like alcohol or opioids or
Yes.
I don't know, nicotine.
So we're an addiction medicine clinic. So whatever
Okay,
the addiction is what we treat, whether it be
gotcha.
opiates, alcohol, tobacco, um, methamphetamine, any of those. We really, I think that predominantly it would be those four.
Okay.
But whatever the addiction is, if for instance there's an addiction to uh, caffeine or something different, then we would obviously treat that a little bit differently. But if they come in with a bona fide addiction, we will help them with that addiction, either treat them medically with medication or give them the resources, such as, I don't know, maybe caffeine, the resources. They're looking to get off of caffeine. They don't want to use caffeine anymore. So we'll connect them with our counselor to see what's going on there and how they can maybe substitute that.
Gotcha. So you said the big four are opioid, methamphetamine, alcohol, and
Tobacco.
nicotine? Okay,
Mhm, mhm.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So can you talk a little bit about, you said, wow, 1,000 patients, and let me ask this question. How many of those are young people?
When you say young, define young.
Uh, Younger than me, I guess. No, no. I, 20, under 20,
Ugh,
under
50%
25.
of them, unfortunately,
50%?
right
Holy
around 50%.
smokes.
Yeah. Every time
50% of your 50% of your client base is under 20 years old.
under
Wow.
20 years old, when they come in and they have a date of birth of 91 or 94, or it just breaks my heart because they're so young.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is that when they reach my office, potentially at times they're so deep that it could be too late, or we have a lot of work to do. But the good thing is that for that population, for that demographic, being that they're young, their body will regenerate a lot faster if they start making some wiser decisions when it comes to those choices.
hmm So when they come to you, can you say, what kind of condition are they in? Mentally, emotionally, physically, kind of, what is there, kind of a profile, if you will, for the kinds of folks that you see when they walk in the door?
So the profile is, a lot of them come, many of them come in. Let me start with, there are a few that come in that are curious. They're in the abuse stage, if you will. And as you so eloquently outlined in a previous slide, use, abuse, and dependence. So the categories, really, the profiles would be for those that are in use. They're just starting out recreationally. There are not very many of those. Then we go into the category of abuse, which is a much larger population. Those guys,
So let me interrupt and just abuse is framed as the consumption of a substance that interferes with major life activities like holding a job or being responsible, following the laws, that kind of thing. So abuse is, when that use really goes past dependence, and it kind of uh, becomes a focus for a person's life, like they
yeah,
can't
yeah,
live without it.
yeah. Abuses could be something as simple. I mean, it's very broad,
Yeah.
before you reach the dependence part, but abuse could be something as to, say, for instance, we give a prescription that says take one a day, and they take two or three a day because it makes them feel better. So that would be in the abuse stage. And once they start abusing, so our bodies are very smart. Our bodies are very smart. Our bodies say, I like that feeling. I really like that feeling. Hit me again, give me another one. And then that becomes the vicious cycle of um, trying to chase that first high. Because once you get that first high, if you will, you're always trying to feel like that. And what is really misunderstood with drug abuse is that you're always chasing that. You're always trying to go back to that first high.
I've heard, I've
Therefore,
I've heard it said that it's hard to get enough of something that almost works.
exactly.
So
Exactly. So then after they're done kind of just abusing it a little bit, what happens? Tolerance, the body is very smart. The body says, oh, one or three or five pills doesn't work for me anymore. Either give me some more pills or give me something stronger.
yeah,
Enter
yeah.
fentanyl. Then you get to the dependent stage, and once you get once you get to the dependent stage, then that's when you're in my office. And that population, unfortunately, is the majority of the population in my office. And it's heartbreaking because at that point, when you're dependent, for my population at this office, when you're dependent, you're going to do anything you need to do to get your fix. And that means theft, That means prostitution, that means manipulation, that means diversion, that means anything you can do, anything you need to do to get your fix, you're going to do it. So when they come to my office and they are dependent, that's where we step in with medication assisted treatment to stabilize the patient. Because at that point, and it may take months, it may take years to get to the dependent stage. Normally, it takes months to get there. And once the person that is dependent realizes that they're dependent, they're starting to lose hope. Once they start to lose hope, they come here and we're able to help them. But it's very important to make sure that I mention the mental health part of it, because as I always say, there's always pain before the addiction. So in essence, when people try to self-medicate because of that pain, they're essentially going backwards, because the pain is not going anywhere. The pain is like a long lost friend that's going to hang out with you forever until you actually address it.
Gotcha. So you're talking about pain that is the result of hanging on to stress, toxic stress that people
Yeah.
have in their lives, where they haven't taken the action steps to really resolve the stress, and they instead of really making the choice to do something about the stuff in their lives, they're choosing to use substances.
Correct.
So in your treatment, so you have people that are dependent on whatever the substance. So then with your medically assisted treatment, you provide a substitute legal medication that can be prescribed by a doctor that gets folks off the possibly illegal stuff, or the opioid or whatever it is, and then you like taper them down and get them off the legal substance, and at the same time you are providing like counseling support or therapy services to help people get their lives back in order. Is that kind of the description of how you do what you do?
Yep, that's pretty much exactly it. So
Gotcha.
we do substitute, and a lot of times people comment that it's switching one drug for another. Well, essentially, yeah, it is. But what we are doing, and I'm going to speak directly to the illicits, they are taking illegal drugs, which can cause a slew of problems for anybody of any age. So we take them from self-medicating to stabilization to providing them with a medication that is controlled and prescribed and legal. So from the illicit to the licit, and while they are concurrently and consecutively, while they are on medication assisted treatment, while they are on that medication, we also require that they start to address what's going on in their hearts, in their mind, in their body. Where is that stress coming from? Why are we looking to put a Band-Aid on this pain? Let's just work it out and talk it out.
Gotcha. That's awesome. So given that so many of your patients are young people, how would you say, reflecting on all of those kids that you've served, how would you say that they handle the stressors of addiction? And, what does that do to them, physically, emotionally, mentally? Talk a little bit about that.
Well, when they're in my office, they're not handling stress at all. They're
Yeah,
popping a pill. They're
yeah,
smoking a pill. They're shoving a needle in their arm to address that stress. Once we understand, our approach is to not assume we know our patients.
hmm
We want to hear their story. That way we can formulate and calculate a plan to help them where they're at right now. Not
hmm
everybody's the same. Medicine is
right,
not everybody's the same. So initially when they come in, we have to stabilize them. We give them about 30 days to get stable, meaning they get the medication, they're not getting it off the streets. Whatever they're getting off the street, we can assume that it's laced with fentanyl, or they're taking straight fentanyl. So we need to give them a couple of weeks so that their mind and their body stabilizes a little bit. After that happens, 99% of the time, or maybe I'm being a little rough, 90% of the time we have to force them to do counseling or to do behavioral health or groups. Once we get them in there, it opens them up to vulnerability. So they're open to saying, this is the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. And that's a very precious space to be in. It requires a lot of trust. It requires a lot of listening. It requires us to really be attentive to our patients and hear them. So, one of my goals is always to not talk so much and really listen to what our patients are telling us, because they're going to tell us what we need to do for them to help them if they can trust us. So for instance, if they come in, and I get on a daily basis young ladies who have been raped, and they don't want to go back there and remember that. So what we do is right at about the 30 days, we start talking about those things. We get into the pain, and talk therapy works. I don't care what anybody says. Talk therapy works. When you can sit someone down and hear their story, and they feel that you care about them enough to even hear that story. And what's super important is that you tell them over and over and over, we do not judge here. Share your story with me and and you can have my shoulder today. It works.
Yeah. Yeah. So would you say that a lot of those folks that come through your door are they probably don't have regular jobs, and I don't know if they're homeless or they're, couch surfing or whatever. But it's like, it just seems to me like you, through your service, you draw a line in the sand and you provide an opportunity for people to, number one, get off the substances to which they're addicted and dependent. And then number two, start putting their lives back together and rebuilding and moving forward. And I guess one of the things I kind of think about is like, how long does that take? How does it, uh, uh, is it months? Is it years? Is it, what are people looking at when they, walk down this path and become dependent, then become addicted, and then get into treatment and recovery? How does that change people's lives?
It just really depends. You have people that come in here, to address your first question. Surprisingly, a lot of our patients do have jobs. I'd say a good 25% of them do have jobs, and they are working. You would never know that they're either on Suboxone or some sort of medication that we've given them. With those people, they're functioning, but they're not living. They're functioning because they're going to work, they're getting a paycheck, they're paying their bills. But internally, it's one big hodgepodge of a mess. And that is pain. So they're just living with that pain because they're used to being in the, fight or flight or freeze mode. They're comfortable there. So for the other guys who don't have a job or who are just getting their lives back on track, it just really depends. For our people who are homeless, we try to give them resources so they're not sleeping on the street or whatever. But I would say that for the most part, all of our patients, they want to be better. They want to do better. So our job is to provide that little light, this little light of mine, provide that little light to them to remind them that the child in them, they didn't want to grow up to be a drug addict. They don't want to be dependent. They don't want to be stealing cars and assaulting people. So if we do our job right, and I take that very, very seriously, if we do our job right and we provide that little bit of hope hence Hope Medical Clinic. If we provide that little bit of hope, they start doing the work themselves. They have the magic within themselves because you know what? We believe in them and we believe that they can do it. Now, timeline, it just depends how strong of a person you have mentally, what their social support network looks like, what their medical, biological standing looks like. So it just depends. And that's why I mentioned earlier why it's so important to listen to people on a one-on-one basis. Because
Yeah.
what works for Adela is not going to work for Bob and vice versa.
Gotcha. Well, great. This has been so informative today. We really appreciate your time. And I think just kind of as a last question to close with, any advice for high school students?
Just don't do it. Don't start because what starts recreational you end up a slave to it and that becomes your master. And then to get you out of that is a long, arduous process, not only for you, but also for your family. But to close, I would just like to say that there is hope and you can overcome addiction without a doubt. And it's not as scary as you might think it is. Give yourself a chance because your life does matter. And I believe that with all my heart. And I will do whatever I need to do to help anybody who watches this video. So
So I think another point hidden in what you just said is uh, whatever might drive you to consider substance misuse or substance, uh, dependence, that stuff in your life, uh, find a way to process, find a way to deal with it, find a way to get past it, move beyond it.
absolutely.
Because if you don't, it will get you either
Yeah.
way.
And call this office. If we can't help you, we'll give you resources
Yeah,
to someone who can help you.
yeah,
Absolutely.
right on.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for your time, Adella. And I think we're done.
Hey, thank
And
you for having me. Appreciate it. Keep
all right,
doing the great job you do, Bob.
take care.
You too. Thanks.